Gandhi live forever. Satya Ahimsa Amara Het. May truth and non-violence live forever.
Tonight, a proposal for an expanded so-called free trade zone from Alaska to the tip of South America. It's a plan from the business elites, the political elites, that will cost more American jobs, cost American sovereignty, but it would fulfill the president's father's vision. Bill Tucker reports.
It's not a new idea. President Bush talked about it back in 1991.
It is a big idea, a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause.
Now, former United States Trade Ambassador Robert Zoellick is talking about it again with renewed vigor. This time, a new world order with business at the helm of trade and economic policy, advocating what he calls the Association of American Free Trade Agreements, a separate non-government entity which would include North, Central, and South America.
What Zoellick is really proposing here is a stealth trade agenda. It's not a national agenda. He's proposing to set up what's essentially a private organization to try to achieve what he couldn't get done when he was the U.S. trade representative. And this is a business agenda.
It's an agenda that goes hand in hand with the United States, Mexico, and Canada, working quietly and behind the scenes to promote a common market with common deregulation for the benefit of multinational corporations. It's an agenda that so far has resulted in an increase in U.S. corporate profits of 45%, while wages of American workers have risen only 3% in the last 5 years.
The main danger raised by Zoellick's proposals is that the future of American international economic policy, which affects not only our nation's prosperity, but its national security, will be set not by the American people and their elected representatives, but by a small corporate elite that is accountable to no one but itself.
Effectively surrendering the sovereignty of the United States. And as justification for trusting those who would have the authority, the argument is made that free trade promotes democracy and the welfare of the people. But, Lou, one has to look no further than China to see whether that, in fact, is true.
You know, talking about Zoellick's proposal, it's not Zoellick's proposal, it's Daddy's proposal. And people better understand that they mean exactly what they're saying. It's a new world order they're trying to create, and they're trying to do so not only without approval or consent of the governed in this country, but despite the popular will. This is a straightforward assault by the elitists in this country. And appreciate it, Bill. Thanks very much. Bill Tucker.
Welcome to The Real Story, and trust me, this one do not delete from your TiVo, and share this with all of your friends. Today's story has everything in it. It has money, it has power, it has socialism, it has national security, world government, oil. It even has global warming. And yet, no one in the media is talking about it. It all revolves around an international agreement called the Law of the Sea, or the Lost Treaty. And even though we've been fighting it off since the days of Ronald Reagan, we are now closer to it than ever before, and the Senate is about to ratify it. The politicians who want to rubber stamp this through Congress tell people that it is harmless. Pay no attention to it. The media is going right along with it. It just formalizes international laws that we've been following anyway. Well, great. Then why do we need a treaty? The real story is that the only thing that will be lost if this treaty is ratified will be more of our sovereignty. This is a big one. Now, I realize it's not exactly a ratings bonanza to have me talk about the fine print and international treaties, but please give me a second to explain why any of this actually matters to you. International treaties are being used by the rest of the world as something called lawfare. This basically means that our adversaries use all of these treaties and accords and conventions that we sign as a way to reduce our power in the world without ever putting a boot down on the ground. This is as much of a weapon as any gun or missile, and it is basically a natural gas war. It will kill you, but you never see it coming. The Kyoto Treaty. This, thankfully, neither Clinton or Bush ever ratified this thing. This is one example of it. But so is something called the Vienna Convention that we told you about last week. Right now, the U.S. Supreme Court is trying to decide if that convention supersedes our own laws and Constitution on due process for foreign nationals, otherwise known as illegal aliens. In essence, while these treaties may seem harmless, and we all love to play nicey nice with the rest of the world, they can actually have more power than our own Constitution, which brings me back to the Lost Treaty. Those pesky little boring details that nobody wants to pay attention to. Here's just a few of them. First, it would give the UN related body control over 70% of the world's surface. Second, the agency would have the power to tax, sorry, the word tax isn't actually in there. They have the power to, levy fees and royalties on us and create a great new revenue stream for the socialist anti-American UN. They also get the power to settle disputes, which, if I may translate, means the power to set up a world court run by, most likely, anti-American foreign judges, which kind of sounds like the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in San Francisco, but trust me, it is even worse. This is really about socialism. The systematic redistribution of wealth by the United Nations and the usurping of your rights as a citizen of this country. The taking away of the Constitution. One of the original creators of this treaty was a public supporter of one world government. She was a woman who saw Lost as a trial balloon for developing a, quote, common global constitution. America, please. This is not a joke. You must look into the Lost Treaty. It is in the Senate now. We must wake up. The killers are inside the House. Our country and our sovereignty is being lost to socialists, globalists, elitists, and corporations. And it's happening right in front of our eyes. We must stand up and say enough now. We go now to Oklahoma Senator James Inhofe. Senator, good to have you on the program again.
Good to be with you again.
Let's start here. This is the first time now the UN will be able to actually levy a tax. Is that true?
Yeah, what it is the Law of the Sea Treaty, I think, is the greatest single raid on our sovereignty in my lifetime anyway. And yeah, they would be able to do it. This new group that's called the International Seabed Authority would have the authority to level taxes on everybody, us and other countries. Now, I'll tell you what I think, and you know my bias against the United Nations. I think every time the United Nations does something that we don't like, we pass a resolution and say we're going to withhold so much of your funds. They don't like to be accountable to anyone, Glenn. And so what they're going to do is try to pass a global tax, and they can do it with this authority.
It's taxes, fees, and levies actually in this.
Yeah, it's there.
Right.
Yeah.
And what America doesn't understand is once the Senate approves something, correct me if I'm wrong, Senator, it's only been a couple of weeks since I read this part of the Constitution, but once you approve it and ratify it, it becomes part of our Constitution.
And it allows the United Nations to regulate 70% of the Earth's surface and the air above it.
Okay. Now, we can't stop ships except for 3 reasons, and terrorism is not one of them.
No, that's true. If we had knowledge that a terrorist was on a ship in the high seas where they had weapons of mass destruction, we wouldn't be able to do it because you can only do it for 3 specific reasons, which are really kind of stupid to start with anyway.
Okay.
So that's the problem that we're having with this thing right now.
We have we're going to put up on the bottom of the screen here an email or a web address, and it is. Do you have it handy, real quick? You want to say it real quick?
Yes, it's epw.senate.gov.
Okay, go there because it has all of this information and so much more that you've put together. Just click on the Glenn Beck viewers and listeners. How close do you believe we are, Senator, to losing America as we know it? We have the Supreme Court answering to an international court last week. We have this Lost Treaty, possibly, most likely, would you say, being ratified by the Senate?
I think most likely. Look, Glenn, we stopped it in 2004 only because no one knew what it was. It passed the Senate Foreign Relations Committee 16-0. So it would have been ratified, but we stopped it by having hearings. That's when Republicans controlled the Senate. We don't control it anymore, so we may not be able to get hearings.
Real quick, Senator, how close are we to losing our sovereignty in this nation?
Way too close. I got 20 kids and grandkids, and I'm really worried about it.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, the Lost supporters love to say that Ronald Reagan was only opposed to this piece of garbage treaty because of one specific clause about seabed mining. Unfortunately for them, Mr. Reagan kept a diary. June 29th, in 1982, this is what he wrote in his diary, quote, "Decided in National Security Council meeting, will not sign Law of the Sea Treaty, even